There is this exhausting dream we all share now, quietly and desperately, and it looks like a studio apartment with excellent soundproofing and groceries that arrive at the door without requiring eye contact with another human being. We want our lives smooth. We want them efficient. We want the ability to close the door, put on noise-canceling headphones, and exist in a perfectly curated bubble where no one needs anything from us, and we need nothing from anyone. Independence has become our religion. Self-sufficiency is the highest virtue. When we hurt, our first animal instinct is to lock ourselves away, to curl inward, to shut the blinds and wait for the pain to pass in total silence. We have convinced ourselves that peace is the absence of other people, that a good life is one where no one bothers us, where we glide through our days uninterrupted, untouched, unburdened by the incompetence and neediness of everyone else. And then there is Ove. When Fredrik Backman wrote this story, he didn't give us a traditional hero with a grand, poetic destiny. He gave us a 9-year-old curmudgeon who points at people he dislikes and aggressively inspects recycling bins. Backman understood something fundamental about our modern sickness. He looked at our obsession with perfect isolation, our desire for a frictionless life, and he countered it with a man who is saved entirely by being annoyed. Ove is a man whose entire existence has been organized. Ove is a man whose entire existence has been organized around rigid principles, around doing things correctly, around a strict moral architecture where you follow the rules, you maintain your property, you drive a Saab because Saabs are sensible, and you absolutely do not back a trailer into someone's mailbox like an idiot. His world is black and white in the most literal sense, all sharp edges and clear boundaries. A life built on the belief that if everyone just followed the damn instructions, the world would function properly. But there was color once. Her name was Sonia. She was the only soft thing in his concrete universe, the only person who could make him laugh, the only reason any of it mattered, and now she is gone. The house smells like stale air and unwashed dishes, not because Ove is incapable of cleaning, but because cleaning requires caring, and caring requires a reason. The sheets on his side of the bed are crisp and cold. Her side remains untouched. There is a specific kind of silence that lives in a house where someone is grieving, a heavy, airless quiet that presses against your chest. And Ove has been sitting in that silence for weeks, maybe months, and he has arrived at a conclusion that feels, to him, perfectly logical. He is done. Not in a dramatic, emotional way. Ove does not do drama. He simply looks at his life and sees a series of tasks that no longer have meaning. What is the point of fixing the neighbor's broken door if Sonia is not there to smile at his grumbling competence? What is the point of his morning inspection of the neighborhood, checking that the bike racks are properly locked and the trash bins are where they belong, if she is not there to roll her eyes affectionately when he returns? Grief has a terrible, suffocating logic. When the person who gave your life meaning disappears, the world does not become sad, exactly. It becomes empty. A place where you go through motions because you have always gone through them, but the motions themselves are hollow, like chewing food you cannot taste. Ove plans his death with the same meticulous care he has applied to everything else in his life. He measures, he calculates, he wants a neat, orderly, quiet exit. No mess, no fuss, just a man stepping out of a world that no longer requires him. But the world, it turns out, has other plans. A pregnant woman named Parvaneh, round-bellied and cheerful in a way that immediately irritates Ove, backs a trailer into his mailbox. Not near it, into it. The metal post bends at an absurd angle, the mailbox itself hanging like a broken tooth, and Ove stands there, staring, feeling a familiar rage bubbling up. The kind of rage that comes from watching someone fail at a task that should be simple if they only paid attention. She does not apologize correctly. Her husband is useless, standing there with his hands in his pockets. They have small children who run around without supervision. They are everything Ove despises, chaotic, incompetent, loud. And they will not leave him alone. Parvaneh knocks on his door the next day with some flimsy excuse, asking to borrow something, and then she is back again, needing help with something else. And then her husband needs to learn how to use a drill. And then there is a problem with a radiator. And Ove, who just wants to be left alone long enough to die in peace, finds himself constantly interrupted by the sheer, staggering incompetence of the people around him. And then there is the cat. It is not a beautiful cat. It is a mangy, ugly, half-frozen thing that shows up on his doorstep and refuses to die. Ove tries to ignore it. He tells it to leave. But the cat, like Parvane, like her idiot husband, like the broken radiator and the teenager who needs driving lessons, does not care about Ove's plans. It just sits there, shivering, looking at him with those accusing eyes, and Ove, against every fiber of his being, puts out a saucer of milk. He tells himself it is temporary. He tells himself he is just preventing the thing from freezing to death on his property because that would be improper. But the cat keeps coming back. And one night, when Ove is sitting in his chair, staring at the rope he has prepared, the cat jumps onto his lap, curls into an ugly, purring ball, and falls asleep. The warmth of it, the physical, insistent warmth of another living thing, is almost unbearable. Here is what we get wrong about purpose. We think it is supposed to be big. We think it arrives as a calling, a passion, a personal legend written in the stars. We wait for it. We search for it. We feel its absence like a wound. And when grief comes, when the person who made us feel purposeful is gone, we look around at our lives and see nothing but emptiness, nothing but chores and obligations that no longer matter. Uwe loved Sonia, and in loving her, he had a reason to get up, to fix things, to care. Without her, the mechanics of living feel pointless. Why fix the radiator? Why check the bike racks? Why keep going? But here is the thing the book quietly, relentlessly shows us. Purpose is not a grand, shining destiny. Purpose is someone banging on your door at 7 in the morning because they do not know how to bleed a radiator, and their house is freezing, and they have small children, and you are the only person on the street who knows how to fix it. Purpose is a pregnant woman who cannot drive a trailer and needs you to do it, not because you want to, but because if you do not, she will absolutely destroy more mailboxes and possibly injure herself. Purpose is a stray cat that refuses to die quietly and instead demands milk and warmth, and for you to stop sitting alone in the dark planning your own exit. We are obsessed with independence, with the idea that we should not need anyone and no one should need us. We treat being bothered as an infringement, an inconvenience, proof that we have not yet built a life insulated enough from the mess of other people. But Ove's story flips that entirely. The reason he does not die, the reason he cannot die, is not because he finds some internal well of strength or rediscovers his love of life in some abstract, philosophical way. He does not die because people will not stop needing him. Parvane needs help. The cat needs feeding. A teenager named Adrian, awkward and desperate, needs someone to teach him to drive because his own father is absent. A man in the neighborhood is being forced into a nursing home by bureaucrats who do not care, and someone has to fight that injustice. The sheer, relentless gravity of other people's incompetence and need pulls Ove back from the edge, again and again. He is annoyed, he is grumpy, he complains constantly, but he shows up. He fixes the radiator, he teaches the kid to drive, he feeds the cat, and in doing so, he stays alive. There is something almost unbearably beautiful about this. We think being needed is a burden, but it is actually a lifeline. The friction of other people, the mess and noise and inconvenience of their lives crashing into ours, is not the thing that makes life hard. It is the thing that makes life possible. Ove does not want to help Parvane. He finds her exhausting. But every time she knocks on his door, every time she asks him to do something, she is quietly, without knowing it, telling him that he still matters. That his skills, his grumpy competence, his ability to fix things are still necessary. That the world is not done with him yet. And slowly, so slowly he barely notices, the house starts to smell different. He airs it out because Parvane is coming over and she is pregnant, and the stale air might bother her. He buys better food because the cat deserves something other than cheap milk. He starts checking on Adrian, making sure the kid is okay, because someone has to. The routines that felt empty when he was doing them alone begin to fill with meaning again, not because Sonia has come back, but because other people have stepped into the space her absence left. This is not a story about getting over grief. Ove does not stop missing Sonia. He does not move on in the way we are told we are supposed to move on, where the pain fades and we find closure and we smile bravely and say we are okay now. He still talks to her. He still visits her grave. The ache of her absence is woven into every single day, but he learns, or maybe he is forced to learn, that love does not only live in one person, that being needed, being useful, being reluctantly dragged into the chaotic lives of the people around you is its own kind of love. Parvene does not replace Sonia. The cat does not replace Sonia. But they give him a reason to stay. They give him small, concrete tasks that require him to be alive. And those tasks, as mundane and annoying as they are, become the structure that holds him together. We have built a culture that celebrates isolation. We praise people who do not need help. We admire those who handle everything on their own, who do not impose, who keep their problems private and their needs hidden. We have turned asking for help into a weakness and being bothered into a violation of boundaries. And in doing so, we have made ourselves terribly, achingly alone. Because the truth is, we are not built for independence. We are built for entanglement. We are built to be uselessly, frustratingly, beautifully tangled up in each other's lives. You are supposed to know your neighbor well enough to notice when they have not left the house in 3 days. You are supposed to be annoyed by the teenager down the street who keeps asking you for advice. You are supposed to let the stray cat in, even though you did not ask for a cat and do not particularly want a cat, because the cat is there and it is cold and you have the ability to help. The modern obsession with a frictionless life is killing us. We want everything smooth, everything easy, everything delivered without effort or interaction. We swipe right, we order in, we work from home, we curate our social circles to include only people who think like us and want what we want. We eliminate the inconvenience of difference, the irritation of needs that are not our own, the mess of people who do not fit neatly into our plans. And we call this progress. We call this self-care. We call this healthy boundaries. But what we are actually doing is cutting the tethers that keep us alive. Because when grief comes, when loss comes, when the bottom falls out and we are left staring at the rope, it is not our independence that saves us. It is the annoying, persistent, inconvenient needs of the people around us. It is the neighbor who will not stop knocking. It is the cat that refuses to leave. It is the kid who needs to learn to drive and has no one else to ask. Ove is saved by being bothered. That is the whole story. He is saved by incompetence, by neediness, by the refusal of the world to let him have his neat, quiet exit. And in being saved, he saves others. He fights for the man being shoved into a nursing home. He becomes a father figure to Adrian. He helps Parvene and her family in 100 small, grumbling ways. He builds a community, not because he wants to, but because he cannot help it. Because once you start showing up for people, once you let yourself be useful, you become woven into the fabric of their lives and they into yours. And that fabric, as annoying and uncomfortable as it sometimes is what holds you up when you cannot hold yourself. There is a scene in the book where Ove is fixing something, probably a radiator or a door or some other household disaster caused by someone else's incompetence, and Parvene is watching him and she thanks him. And Ove, being Ove, grumbles and waves her off and acts like it is nothing. But it is not nothing. It is everything. It is the entire reason he is still breathing. Because being useful, being needed, even in the smallest, most mundane ways, is what gives life texture and weight. It is what makes getting out of bed worth it. Not passion, not destiny. Just the knowledge that someone, somewhere, does not know how to bleed a radiator. And you do. So stop trying to build a perfectly insulated life. Stop treating other people's needs as interruptions. Stop chasing the myth of total independence, where you need no one and no one needs you, and you glide through your days untouched and unbothered. That is not peace. That is not freedom. That is just loneliness with better marketing. Let people bother you. Let them knock on your door at inconvenient times. Let them ask you for help with things they should probably be able to figure out themselves. Be the person who knows how to fix the radiator, who teaches the kid to drive, who feeds the stray cat. Be reluctantly useful. Be grumpily necessary. Because when the darkness comes, and it will come, it is not your independence that will save you. It is the sheer, annoying, beautiful fact that someone needs you to show up tomorrow. That someone's radiator will break, and you are the only one who knows how to fix it. That the cat expects breakfast. That the kid has another driving lesson. That the world, messy and loud and incompetent as it is, refuses to let you go. Being annoyed by the people around you means you are tethered to the world. It means you are still here. And that, as it turns out, is enough.